Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us again on Conversations with Cliff. My name is David Evenden. I'm the owner and founder of Standard User Cyber and Standard User Institute. This is my good friend Cliff Lash, who is the president of Standard User Institute. Cliff, how you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing great, thanks. We've kind of had a couple of conversations in the past few weeks where we're sort of kind of bringing things back home a little bit to the end user, and I think you're wanting to talk a little bit about some more stuff like that. For instance, around the subject matter of malvertising.
Yes, that's correct.
Great,
Yeah.
yeah. So just to kind of just to do a really tiny brief introduction on what malvertising is.
Okay.
Malvertising is the act of producing some type of advertisement that introduces malware on your system.
Okay.
That's really malvertising. It's the introduction of malware by way of clicking on some type of advertisement that might be hosted on some social media platform.
Okay.
And that they do have specific series use cases of how that bypasses advertising platforms and stuff like that. But we'll get there. I kind of want to give you an opportunity to sort of ask a few questions about what your thought processes are on malvertising.
Yes. And thank you for clarifying. I mean, I have an example that I want to give you of something that happened to me on the internet. And so what happened to me may have a different name than malvertising, but it's, in my mind, similar.
Sure.
And but then let me tell you this example, and you can talk about that a little bit. And then I have some specific questions about malvertising as well.
Sure.
So on Instagram, I've seen this um, bicycle helmet that looks like a regular ball cap that has padding on the inside of it, and the owners of the company claim that it's as safe, maybe even more safe than a hard shell bicycle helmet, but it's packable and you can take it with you. And not doing any traveling right now, but I've done some traveling in the past, and you know, a bicycle helmet takes up a lot of space, and I'd love to have it with me so I could hop on these bicycles that are in different cities around the country, or even if I go overseas, I'd like to have something like that with me. And I saw on Instagram they were offering this hat helmet for $30. I mean, it's greatly, deeply discounted. And I thought, well, they're just wanting to raise some cash right quick. So they've, you know, lowered the price to get some cash. And so I thought, yeah, I'll pay $30 for one of those. I'd love to, you know, I really want one anyway, but I'm not ready to shell out, you know, $100 or however much it is they're charging for them. And so it seemed like a great deal. So I ordered it and used PayPal to pay for it. And then I waited for weeks, and finally it arrived. And it was just in this nondescript black packaging thing, and I could see that it came from China. And when I pulled it out, what I received was a plain, ordinary, non-padded trucker cap, a black hat, you know, probably kind of significant for what's happening to me here. And so I just stared at it for a couple of days thinking, you know, what just happened to me? And finally I contacted the actual company that's developing and selling this new style of bicycle helmet. And they told me that somebody had taken their information, put it on Instagram, and it was not them. And so somebody else had pretended to be them and tricked me into purchasing this this cap, which is, you know, it's not their helmet.
Right.
And so here I am. And so they suggested that I contact PayPal and see if I could make a complaint and get my money back that way. But I just haven't done it. And I suppose that's what criminals hope for, or that, you know, some people like me will just forget about the $30 rather than go through the hassle of seeing what you can do to try to get it back, you know. And
Right.
so at some other time, maybe I would have been in the mood. And, you know, now I think probably too much time has passed. I don't really know for sure. But anyway, um, so I feel bad for that company because it seems like a really good product, and they actually are on Instagram. I mean, they, you know, I'm sure it's them. I mean, they're advertising still on Instagram. I get their messages because I get a lot of bicycle advertisements for some reason, and um, so anyway, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, yeah. So there's different names and terminologies for that type of attack. Really, just imposturing or sort of just masquerading as another organization. That specific type of platform. I mean, while it is sort of a phishing campaign, really is kind of a watering hole concept where you put out a certain type of advertisement pretending to be someone else, and it's company or organizational identity theft where you're pretending to be somebody else and you're basically having them purchase products. And this is not uncommon. This is very, very common. um, some some good tips for protecting against what you just said was, most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, when an advertisement does come out, it's required to be hosted by a specific handle. So you see the advertisement's being, when I say hosted, it's funded, it's paid for by a handle. And that handle is what's the name of the user, if you will, or company that's advertising the specific offering. And so you go and you follow that. And if that's not the company of the product you're purchasing, you need to take a step back and say, okay, well, who is this other company then? If it happens to be an advertisement firm, just sort of do some research on the advertisement firm, and so on and so forth. But that is common. It's a very, very common thing. There's lots and lots and lots of companies that that basically fall under the category of being targeted by organizational identity theft.
Well,
Um,
let me ask a question right quick. You know, just if you could clarify the thing about the company having a handle or whatever. Um, you know, because I mean, as I was listening to you talk about that, I was thinking about my own banks. I mean, when I'm logging into my bank, when I get to the sign-in page, it takes me to this string of characters up in the URL line
yep.
that I can't recognize it at all.
Right. Yeah, we're not talking about a URL, we're talking about a handle. And so when we talk about the handle, what we're talking about is the social media account for that particular advertisement thing.
Okay.
So it's going to be hosted. So say for instance, I have I own a company. That's a good example. Standard User Cyber. Standard User Cyber has a handle. You go to that page, you look at the page. This is the company page. And if I want to advertise something, it's pushed out. And when that advertisement's pushed out, and you click on the handle will take you back to my website or my page,
Mm-hmm.
my social media page. So it's being funded for and advertised by that handle, by that account. If you click on that account and it takes you to if you click on that, whoever's advertising, it takes you to an account that you don't recognize. It doesn't actually appear to be the company who owns this product you're trying to purchase. Then it should be a clear indication that something's just not quite right. Something's a little bit off. It's easy to create a handle that looks very similar to normal ones. So knowing what the official handle is going to be important. You can go to famous actors accounts all the time, and you go to something and it's not actually their account, it's somebody else who's creating the account like them. But then you go to the official, I'm the official whatever account you want to go to, Taylor Swift or whoever your favorite fan is, and that's what you do. So that's the process specifically of on social media doing that. Now, again, that's an advertisement pushed out. There are other, side columns for different things, and chances are this might have been what you're talking about, where you saw sort of a side column for a specific advertisement. Now, these are often required to be scrubbed by Facebook, Google AdWords, Instagram and Facebook are the same company, Twitter, whatever it is, social media account you're going to. However, it's difficult to know for those advertisement firms to know if the company advertising is actually not the owner of the product. Um, it's a little bit difficult to know that for sure. So just kind of as the end user, you have to be a little bit diligent there. Um, so that's kind of the watering hole fishing campaign of clicking on something and purchasing something that you might not be buying the right product. Um, you know, it's not an individual story that happens all the time. And again, to the same point, even when you click on that and you go to the website, you're going to check out. There's all kinds of checkout websites. They all look different. They all have different times. Exactly the same thing for your bank. So again, that's kind of difficult to know too. You know,
Yes.
you're just kind of you really you just need to sort of do due diligence. The process of using PayPal to purchase things online is good because PayPal will act as the broker for you, and that's good. That's good to know.
Mhm.
Okay, so backing up on that conversation to talk about malvertising. So go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking about, a number of apps that I have on my phone, and I'll just say like my weather app. If you start scrolling down through there, I mean, there's just tons of ads and really strange stuff that they're hosting. And so, um, because I trust the weather app, which I do, I mean, should I trust that they have scrubbed all these ads? Am I safe clicking on those
Yeah,
ads?
no, because they're not scrubbing
Okay.
them.
Okay.
And this part of this malvertising conversation, I'll explain to you why in your weather app you shouldn't trust those ads because it's the same exact situation. So what happens is there's a centralized, not one centralized, but let's just say, for instance, 10 or 15 or 20 different centralized advertisement companies. And those advertisement companies might, you might post something to Facebook. Facebook might use an advertisement company or might own their own advertisement company where it then gets pushed there. And that advertisement company can redistribute that ad to 5 or 6 different platforms. Some of those might be different websites. And then if you want to make more money on your website, what you can do is you can actually include an iframe on your website where you're offering advertisement, and anybody that goes to your website and views those ads, that information gets pushed back to the advertisement company, and you, who's the website owner, gets paid a little bit for that, for those views. So every time that you're scrolling through weather, yada yada, and you're viewing something, that weather app owner might be getting paid a little bit for that. And if you click on it, then they're getting paid even more money. So that's kind
So can I interrupt for just a second? So the owner of the app, like the weather app, they're not necessarily looking at each individual ad.
of
Their agreement is with like an advertising company or something, and it's
right,
that advertising company that's sticking stuff into that spot.
right, and it's that process is automatic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And so really, and the way that happens is an organization, let's just say end user, product owner, yada, whatever it is, submit something to the advertisement firm. This is my ad, and the advertisement firm scrubs it, processes it through malware identification. There's no malware, no known malware on here. It's good to go. Push it out. A malicious person does the exact same thing. No malware on there, pushes it out on the back end of one embedded JavaScript file. um, you change a couple of portions, add in a couple of things, and now you're introducing additional capabilities once that approval process has been done. And you push it so far back in the code that that it doesn't trigger any requirements the for the advertisement company to update or say, hey, this needs to be revalidated because we've noticed you made a change. If you push it so far back in the JavaScript code, it actually doesn't identify that a change has been made. And so it doesn't require an update. we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty here, but this is sort of that process of how it happens.
Yeah.
And so once that happens, those advertisements continue to get pushed out. And so one of the examples there, for instance, a close family friend of ours um, clicked on a Chip and Joanna Gaines advertisement on the left side column of Facebook. It was on there. They liked Chip and Joanna Gaines, so they clicked on it. They wanted to see what it was, what was happening, and it ended up being some, some exploit for providing a remote person access to your machine. Hey, call us. Your machine's been targeted with this type of malware. You need to call this number and provide access because we'll help you mitigate it. Of course, we've all seen attacks like those. They're not real. All you have to do is figure out how to close that image. And once you close the image, you can move on with your life. But most of the time people see that and they don't really know what's happening and they're too afraid. In this particular situation, they were too afraid to call, their husband or whoever it was. And it ended up kind of turning into this big ordeal. And unfortunately, the way that that happens, what really happens is not only are you providing access to the machine, but they also say, well, in order for us to help you, it's going to cost you so much money. You need to give us your credit card information. And then this is a spiraling event of all these different terrible things, which all of those ended up happening in this situation. So, really stepping back from that situation, understanding that process of what you're clicking on, and really that those are just being scrubbed. It's incredibly easy to just change a couple of portions of like 5 or 6 layers deep of JavaScript code, and now you're introducing some type of a known vulnerability or known exploit or process that is used to target an end user. Yeah, and so I mean, if you're the best situation, in my opinion, is that if you see something on the internet that an advertisement of some kind, and you want to take a look at it, you want to do that, and you don't know how to stand up a VM, you don't know how to do that in a controlled environment, then go back to your Google browser and actually query for that. And once you bring up what the end result is, that's the website or the domain you want to go to, then you click on that and you go to the website and actually view. If you don't see the same offering or whatever it is that you want to go to, and you say, but I know this is an offering, I really want to get it. You can even Google or query for 20% off, yada yada. And that still doesn't work. Well, instead of going back to the initial one and clicking on it, because now you should sort of trigger something. Okay, there's nothing on their website giving me the same offering. I'm just going to call the company and say, hey, I saw an advertisement for 20% off. How can I get that? I don't really want to click on that. How can I get that same offering? And if it's a real offering, they'll tell you, hey, you know what? That's for online offering. We understand you not wanting to do that. We'll offer that same offering here. We'll process payment just now. And or they're saying, you know what? That's somebody stolen all of our images. We aren't offering that. That's not us. And then you just saved yourself. So my rule of thumb, if you see something online, contact the company themselves to validate that it's a true offering before you do anything.
Yeah. Well, this is, I want to read something from this book, Cybersecurity for Dummies by Joseph Steinberg. And he says, some malvertising requires users to click on the ads in order to become infected with malware. Others do not require any user participation. Users' devices are infected the moment that the ad displays.
So really what we're talking about here, and that's true, that is very true. You have different iframes and code injection capabilities. Some of them are a little bit more advanced, and then some of them, like for instance, embedding code into an image, for instance, that's actually a really common exploitation process. And really what's happening there is not necessarily that the site or the image or the advertisement is attacking your computer, even though it is, it's actually attacking your web browser. And so if your web browser is not up to date, if your web browser is not fully patched, if you don't have antivirus on your machine, that's the only way that malware can attack your specific platform is via your web browser.
Now, your friends that have this, box that came up that said you have to click on this and pay us money. Um, I think I remember reading also that sometimes you don't even know that they have done this. It's
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit more difficult to that is true. The process of embedding an iframe into a specific portion of advertisement and then allowing that portion allowing that iframe to process through and communicate with your web browser. What happens in this process um, is you'll inject code, malicious code, into the memory address space of your web browser. We're kind of getting into the nitty gritty here, but
it's a,
really allowing for runtime, RAM access to your machine. So there's nothing on disk yet. There's no process like that. This is an automated process. And if that happens and it continues to allow for you to move forward, you then can move from that section of memory address space in your web browser and migrate to a different process or put something down on disk and then allow for it to call back to the end user. Once you put a specific executable, how we talked about in the past, file, if you will, program, whatnot. Once you put that on disk, the attacker's probability for being caught increases exponentially.
oh,
So if there's a an antivirus on the machine, and the second you put something on the disk, the probability that you're going to get caught is really high. So
okay.
yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at. Those are the different portions of the conversations there.
But the things you're describing can happen on the computer or on your phone, either one, correct?
Yeah, I'm not. Yes, that's 100% true. I'm not actually a cell phone offensive security analyst, so I don't know a whole lot about that world other than that it is a computer and it operates in the
Mhm.
same exact way. So yes, it is. They just use something called APK packages, which are basically just application files that allow for you
Mhm.
to, you inject in the memory address space in the exact same way. You drop an APK file and you get a call back in the same way. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, this conversation has not given me a whole lot of comfort clicking on ads.
yeah, I would say that that some good antiviruses do provide solid like web application firewall or web application or rather I should say web browser web browsing protections and I would strongly encourage a lot of people to research those. I think that that most people think that high tier expensive antiviruses are for people that want they don't have anything on them, or they might have like lots of important things on their machines, or they work in an enterprise or a corporation somewhere. um, Really, I mean, you're talking about your world and your environment and all of your content. So the more secure you want to personally feel, the the better the antivirus I would encourage you to have.
Okay, that's good. That's good information too.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, David. This has just been so enlightening and helpful. And you didn't tell me how to get my money back for this, but
Yeah. Well, it sounds like somebody already told you how to do that. You just got to contact
I guess
PayPal.
so. Or
Yeah.
maybe how to do that.
Maybe how to do that. Yeah, that's true too. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Thanks again for the conversation. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot.